This video has been edited to shorten watch time by removing sidebars, evidence handling, and long pauses. Witness testimony remains intact, with minor cuts to hesitation words and stutters.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Have you and I met before?
No, sir.
This is our first time speaking.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you say that your memory from that night is very strong. Would it be fair to say that before today, you've talked about this case many times?
Yes.
You've interviewed with different law enforcement people as well as civilians and attorneys, haven't you?
Correct.
I have not been one of them.
No, you have not.
And is it fair to say that when you've recounted that night as far as times and what you saw, many times your memory has changed? Is that fair to say?
It has not.
You spoke to a private investigator on behalf of the defense shortly after that night?
Yes.
Was that the first time that you spoke to somebody about what you had seen or not seen?
Yes.
That is the first time?
Yes.
Inevitably, over time, you have given statements to at least 4 different people, correct?
Correct.
And you've testified in court under oath?
Correct.
During the pendency from that night until today, it's fair to say there are many times where you have been intimidated, isn't it?
No.
You've been threatened.
Nope.
You were aware, sir, that you were being threatened by an online blogger to expose you?
I was not.
You're saying as you sit here today, you have no awareness in the history of this case that you were being threatened by an online blogger?
I was not threatened by an online blogger.
Was the online blogger threatening or saying that he would expose you and tell personal things about you if you weren't helpful?
He was not threatening.
Let's remove the word threatening. Was the person communicating and making clear to you that if you didn't testify in a certain way, there would be some consequence to you? Anytime from when you first spoke to the private investigator until today, were there communications made to you by an online blogger that there would be consequence to you if you didn't testify in a way that was acceptable to them?
No.
You listened, of course, didn't you, to podcasts that were about you?
I did not.
People told you about them.
Yes, they did.
When friends told you about them, you knew who that person was that was making those claims, correct?
Correct.
You were well aware of the person had a very strong and large social media presence.
I didn't know how large or what his presence were, but yes, I knew he had a blog.
Well, you know now because you follow that blogger now, don't you?
I do follow him, yes.
Do you pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Did you get one for free?
I did not.
And in following that blogger, you know full well the power that person has to get attention from the community to harass, correct?
Yes.
And so during the pendency of this case, not only were you aware that you were being pressured to testify a certain way, also knew there'd be consequences if you didn't. Isn't that true?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
The premise of that question is not accurate.
So he can answer it.
You knew there was pressure for you to testify a certain way in this case.
I did not know I was being required to testify a certain way. I was also at the time dealing with the loss of my wife. I was not paying any attention to any social media.
Sorry for your loss, but you are aware during the pendency of this case that there has been pressure on you to testify in a certain way. Isn't that fair to say?
No,
Sir, you received a call from that blogger, didn't you?
I did.
And during that call, did you know the person was recording you?
I did not.
You later learned that the person recorded you.
I did not.
Do you know that your conversations were spread throughout the community online?
I was.
Sir, some of those communications or inquiry were claims that you would be exposed for personal matters if you didn't testify a certain way, weren't they?
No.
Inevitably, you've met this person, haven't you?
I've seen him. I haven't met him.
Have you ever spent time with him?
No, I have
You're
not.
still a follower of that blog.
I am.
When you follow the blog, do you read anything or do you watch it?
No, I don't do much anything towards the blogger.
As you follow it, you can see there are oftentimes articles about you.
No.
Haven't you ever been encouraged to do the right thing?
No.
Haven't you ever been celebrated after you've testified in a way favorable for one
Yes.
side or the other?
Yes.
And so when you were being celebrated, that certainly took off any pressure that there would be consequence, didn't it?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
When you were celebrated for testifying a certain way, did you find that to be encouraging?
I did find it to be encouraging,
Did
but
you?
I did not want it. I don't think I deserved it. All I was doing was my job and telling the truth.
Did you enjoy the attention that you got?
I did not.
Did you pose in photographs with people who support one side or the other?
I did.
And when you were in those photographs, are you saying that you didn't enjoy the attention that you were receiving?
I did not. Again, I was trying to be polite and trying to avoid any confrontation that may come from something if I said no.
Well, did anybody from the district attorney's office ever suggest they would confront you or punish you if you didn't testify a certain way?
No.
How many friends contacted you about what was being said before you testified, the pressure? How many people told you about that?
I couldn't tell you. All my friends were telling me.
So you were hearing a lot of noise or information from your friend group and community about what was being said about you.
Yes.
And this was before you testified at the first trial, sir.
This was before.
Sir, you work hard, don't you?
I do.
You work many different jobs.
I do.
You try to be a good citizen.
I do.
You are not looking for attention.
I am not.
It was brought to you.
It was brought to me.
You wish you never had that attention, don't you?
Yes.
Because you just want to live your life the way you want to live it rather than have people you don't know attacking, criticizing, or intimidating you.
I'll allow that.
Could you repeat that, please?
Would it be fair to say that you simply want to live your life the way you've been living it without outside people attacking or pressuring or threatening you?
Yes.
On June 5th, 2023, you were contacted by the defense private investigator, weren't you? And you may not know the dates. Were you contacted twice by the private investigator?
I would need to know what time frame we're looking at.
Fair enough. By the way, the blogger that I speak of, do you know if he is friendly or supports one side over the other?
I know he is friendly towards one side, yes.
Okay. The side sitting in the back of the room?
I would say the defense team.
You've interacted with a private investigator hired by the defense?
Yes.
Have you also interacted with any of the attorneys?
Yes.
Which attorneys have you interacted with?
Mr. Yannetti.
Have you contacted or have you spoken to any other attorneys other than Mr. Yannetti?
Just Mr. Yannetti.
How many times have you spoken to Mr. Yannetti?
Again, what are we talking? First trial, this trial?
The entire time from that night until today. Can you remember how many times that you've spoken?
About 5 times.
How many times have you gone in to be interviewed by him?
4 times?
During those interviews, were they spaced out over the course of this case?
Yes.
What was the purpose of those interviews?
To go over my testimony.
When you went over testimony, were you ever shown prior testimony?
Yes.
Were you shown prior reports?
No.
Were you shown a prior investigator's report?
Yes.
Were you shown a prior report by a law enforcement agency that is not the state police and not Canton?
Not by Mr. Yannetti. I saw that first document for the first time during the first trial.
When you were discussing your testimony, was there a discussion about the fact that the times that you gave the private investigator were different than the report from that law enforcement agency?
Could you repeat that question, please?
When you were preparing the trial in those meetings, was it brought up, did you discuss that there was a difference in your memory, or at least in the reports, between what you told the defense private investigator and what you told that other law enforcement agency?
No.
Were you aware that there was a difference between the different statements attributing your memory as to time?
The first trial, yes.
When you were with the defense preparing for trial, did you go over your testimony?
Yes.
Go over questions and answers?
Yes.
Were you ever subjected to a make-pretend cross-examination about issues that were important in this case?
No.
Were you ever pointed to any particular issues that were important to talk about in this case? When you did the questions and answers, were they written down or just a conversation?
Can you repeat that one, please? I'm sorry.
When you went through the questions and answers in preparing, practicing for your testimony, were they written down?
So ask it differently.
When you were preparing for your testimony, were the questions and answers written down, or was it just speaking?
Just speaking.
Those 4 times that you met, is that a guess, or was it 4 times?
It was about 4 times, yes.
Could have been more?
No.
And during those 4 times, was there anything different other than going through questions and answers about testimony and preparation? Was there any other subjects you talked about?
There were none.
Did you ever receive any compensation, sir?
I received none.
Do you know whether people were sending you compensation that you didn't receive?
No.
You don't know?
I never received anything.
Were you given anything to bring home with you so that you could remember past testimony or some of the questions and answers that were going to be asked?
No.
How long were your meetings in preparation for your testimony?
About 45 minutes to an hour?
Were they all about the same time, or were they different? When you came into court last year, it's fair to say this is after you became aware of essentially being targeted, correct?
You can answer that if you can. Can you answer that, Mr. Loughran?
I can. I don't ever felt like I was being targeted.
This was after you received all the information from your friends and people in the community that you were being attacked.
I'll allow that.
Again, I don't feel like I was being targeted.
Are you concerned after this case what happens with the blogger that you follow?
No.
You talked about your meeting with the private investigator. The first time you met him, do you remember that meeting?
Yes.
Do you remember where you met him?
I met him at my place of employment.
Did you go anywhere with him that day?
No, I did not.
You had a conversation with him and you spoke about what you had remembered from that night?
Yes.
Do you remember when you spoke to that private investigator, you weren't sure how many times you went up and down Fairview that night? That you had said 2 or 3?
No, I told him I went up 2:30 at 2. I told him at 3:30 I went up 2, went up and down. And I told him about 3 hours later I went up and down. I went down and wasn't able to go around the police cruisers and had to turn around at Carriage Lane.
You mentioned that you believe you told the private investigator that you went up and down at 2:30. Do you remember when you spoke to the private investigator, you actually said 3 o'clock?
I don't remember the 3 o'clock.
May I approach?
Yes.
And before I do you remember you said that when you went on your second pass, it was around 3:15?
I told him I went up Fairview between about 2:40 to 2:45. And I said about 45 minutes later, I went for the second time.
Okay. Now you had said 2:30 and you just now said 2:40 to 2:45, and then you said 45 minutes later.
Yep.
Okay. Remember telling the private investigator that when you think, or you said you saw a Ford Edge, you were actually still on Cedar Brook, not on Fairview passing by it, but you saw it from the street at Cedar Brook. Do you remember telling him that?
I don't
Cedar
remember.
Crest.
I don't remember ever saying that.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Show you a copy. This is a report that you didn't write, so I don't want you to read it. I want to show it to you and see if it helps remind you of what you told the private investigator that day. You can look at any part of this, but what I'm asking you is whether or not you remember telling the private investigator that when you saw the car, you weren't passing on Fairview, you were up on Cedar. That's what I'm asking. So I'd ask you to look at whatever part you want, but I'm going to point out the part to you. When you're done, don't answer, just look up, and then I'll get to ask you some questions about your memory, okay?
Okay.
So I directed to this part, but you can look at any part that you want, sir. Are you done, sir?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, do you now remember when you were speaking to the defense investigator about seeing a car? You said that about 3:30 to 4 a.m. when you were plowing Cedar Crest Road, you looked toward Fairview Road and saw a small SUV parked in front of the house. Remember telling the PI that?
I never remember telling him that.
When you spoke to law enforcement, not the Canton police or the state police, you understood it was important to be as accurate as possible?
Yes,
And you understood, at least with that law enforcement agency, if you misled them in any way, it could be up to a 10-year penalty?
yes,
When you spoke to them, did you take that interview very seriously?
yes,
Try to be as precise and accurate as you could?
yes,
And when you spoke to them, obviously, like anybody, you had in mind that there could be serious consequences if they felt misled.
yes,
You try to be honest with them,
yes,
provide them your best memory in good faith.
yes,
And this was shortly before, well, actually, this was May 24th, 2023, correct?
correct.
When you met, there was more than one person there from this agency?
I believe so.
Was there potentially two?
There was two.
And when you met with them, they asked you about when you began working that night.
Yes,
You told them 11:30 to midnight.
I never told him that.
And so as you sit here today, your memory is you did not tell those law enforcement agents that you began work at 11:30 to 12?
We had a 2:30 start time.
I understand, but I'm asking you,
I never told them. It was always 2:30 start time.
when you spoke to them, do you remember telling them the first time you were out near the area was midnight?
Nope. No,
When you spoke to those law enforcement personnel, were they taking notes?
I believe so.
Have you ever seen their report?
The first trial I did, yes.
Who showed you that report?
It was shown to me by Prosecutor Lally.
You think Prosecutor Lally showed you that report?
It was shown to me.
And do you remember telling those two law enforcement personnel that you believe that there were emergency vehicles, ambulances, or police cars in front of Fairview at 3 to 3:30 a.m.?
I do not.
Are you saying that you did not say these things to them, or are you saying that that's not your memory?
That's not what I said.
And so you're saying that's wrong. You're denying
Correct.
you made those statements.
Correct.
At the time they say that you told them there was emergency vehicles there at 3 a.m., that is the same time that you told the PI that you saw the Ford Edge around 3:30 to 4, correct?
About 3:30 is when I saw the Ford Edge.
It was dark out that night, wasn't it?
Correct.
There are no street lights down near that flagpole area of 34 Fairview, is there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Was it on that night?
I can't tell you honestly if it was.
Testified at trial? I'm sorry, at a proceeding last year?
I testified that there were, it was asked to me that there were not any streetlights. And I answered it in the affirmative way. And living in that neighborhood, I saw that there were actual streetlights.
You testified at a proceeding last year, didn't you?
Yes,
And when you testified at the proceeding, did you meet anybody from the defense close in time to that proceeding?
I don't know, when we met, how close to the proceedings it was.
Do you remember being prepared before you went into trial last time?
Yes,
By
Yannetti, excuse me.
Do you remember telling the defense private investigator that you made your final pass at 6:30 a.m.?
I remember I told him it was about 3 hours going down Cedar Crest and was not able to go to the end of Fairview due to the first responders.
At trial last year, do you remember saying it was 5:30?
I did.
And today you had said about 6:15.
Yes,
Okay. You weren't timing anything on a watch for times, were you?
I was not.
You were not accounting in any way for time whatsoever when you were out that night, were you?
No, I was not.
When you're providing times, are you trying to use your best memory?
Yes,
You recognize that you have a differing memory on times of what you did that night?
no,
You talked about your view from the tow truck and that you have a bunch of lights on it. On the tow truck, you had mentioned that your vision to the side was 5 to 6 feet.
Can you rephrase that, please?
Yes, of course. You said when you were driving your tow truck, you could see forward and sideways.
Okay. I don't want to be. I don't drive a tow truck.
My apologies. My apologies. Your snowplow.
Thank
You
you.
said you can see forward and sideways.
I can see forward, I can see diagonal, and I can see right to left.
When you look right to left, you said you could see about 5 feet.
Correct.
Do the lighting conditions affect how well you can see?
No.
Does the weather?
Yes.
When you're plowing, are you ever looking at the street in front of you?
Yes.
Are you looking at people's front yards?
Yes.
And so what did you see as far as the front door of the Albert House that night? Was it open or closed?
It was closed.
With lights on?
I can't answer that for sure. I don't remember if there were lights on.
How about the neighbors on the left? Were you looking at their front line?
Yes.
Did you see if their lights were on?
Again, I didn't recognize if their lights were on.
Do you look at every neighbor's front line up to the door as you're driving in the snow plowing?
I look to the right and to the left, and my eyes will graze to the yard. Yes, I will look there.
You were saying you have a specific memory of looking at the Albert front yard all the way to the door. Do you have a specific memory of looking at the other neighbors' yards to their door?
Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
Yes, you said that you looked at the Albert house all the way to the door.
Correct.
Do you have a memory of looking at any other houses all the way to the door?
Yes.
Okay. Which house had a dumpster in front of it?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to a dumpster. Dumpster wouldn't be in the front yard.
Are you sure on your route there was no dumpsters in anybody's front yard?
I can tell you there was a dumpster this week.
I'm more interested in January 29, 2020.
I can't answer to that. I don't remember.
A dumpster, a 15 by 20 foot dumpster, that would be bigger than a man's body, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
And so you have no really specific memory of the other homes in the neighborhood that night?
I mean, I looked, saw, I didn't see a dumpster that would have definitely stuck out.
Okay. You said you had vision as far as your eyes could see.
Correct.
Right. What does that mean?
Means if there were, my eyes were, as long as they're open, I can see as far as they will let me see.
Is that dependent on lighting conditions, darkness, snow?
Correct.
That night, did you have any difficulty paying attention or driving?
I did not.
Did you have a small accident that night?
I did.
Okay, what did you hit?
I hit a portable basketball net.
Was that part because of the weather conditions? You didn't have a good opportunity to see it?
No, I definitely saw it and just did not judge enough.
Opportunity to see it?
No, I definitely saw it and just did not judge enough.
You said that you went up and down the road a couple of times. When you were asked to describe the car that you said you saw, when you first spoke to the defendant's private investigator, you didn't give any detail about the type of car, did you?
I told her it was a Ford Edge.
When you first spoke to the investigator, you used the words Ford Edge?
I did.
Did they bring you to a parking lot at some point?
They did.
And when they brought you to a parking lot, did they have you go out in the parking lot and look at a Ford Edge?
They did.
And when they had you go out and look at the Ford Edge, did they have you identify that as the type of car?
Yes, they did.
When you did that, how many cars were in the parking lot?
We had a hockey game, so there were several, at least 100, 150. I pointed to it.
Did the investigator take you to the Ford Edge?
No, he did not.
It was just an open parking lot, and he asked you to look around to see if there happened to be a similar car?
No, I told him a Ford Edge. He wanted to make sure I knew what a Ford Edge looked like. I pointed to the Ford Edge, and he was satisfied.
So after you said a Ford Edge, he brought you to a parking lot to point out a car?
We were at my place of business. We just walked out the door.
Where was that?
At the Metropolis ice rink.
The rink?
Ice rink, yes.
Did you then meet the investigator later on at a school?
Yes, I did.
And who did you meet at the school?
I met Paul again.
And what was the purpose of that?
He wanted to go through my route. Correct.
And then did you choose to meet at the school?
I did.
You did?
I did.
And why did you choose the school?
It was an easier landmark for the gentleman to get to, and it was minutes from my route.
Did you know that former Trooper Proctor's sister worked there?
I had no idea.
You said last year that when you went by Fairview, did you say that you would buy your final pass at 5:30 a.m.?
No.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Sir, when you have contact, you also wear reading glasses?
Yes. I can't read things up close.
Understood. This is trial testimony, testimony from June 21st, 2024.
Mhm.
And you were asked, do you recall what time it was that you wound up back on Fairview? You said, I don't honestly recall what specific time. Yes?
Yes.
And then you were asked, sure. Approximately, if it was 3:15 to 3:30, that second time, what would be your best estimate of the time when you came back? And what did you say?
Say about 5:30.
And so even last year, you were having some difficulty remembering the times, right? Were you having difficulty last year remembering the times that you were on Fairview?
No.
When you said you were on Fairview last year at 5:30, you didn't see anything on the Albert front lawn at 5:30 a.m.?
I wasn't on Fairview at 5:30 a.m.
Okay. Were you asked last year about your travels on Fairview?
Yes.
Okay. When you asked about, do you recall it was time you wound up on Fairview and you said you didn't remember? Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
And is that true testimony?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you had some difficulties in your memory of when you were on Fairview when you testified last year. Isn't that fair to say?
No, it's not fair.
And then you were asked approximately if it was 3:15 to 3:30 the second time, what time did you come back?
And I said, if I were to guess, I said 45 minutes later.
Did you say, I would say, if I had to say, it would have been 5:30 up Fairview?
That time was incorrect. It was 6:15. I couldn't go down any further due to the police presence.
So your testimony last year, you understandably made a mistake about the time, correct?
I did.
And it's true, isn't it, that you really have somewhat foggy memory about the times.
It is not.
That time of 5:30 is very different than the time you told the agents when you met them. The law enforcement officials that weren't from Canton or the state police. That was very different than when you told them 3 to 3:30.
Very different.
And it's different than the 3:30 to 4 timeline that you gave the defense private investigator the first time you spoke to them, right?
Correct.
And it's different than what you told the jury today, that it was 6:15.
It's different, but it's not.
When you plowed that night, did you have any reason to look for somebody who was lying on the side of a yard?
No.
Did you have any expectation somebody would be lying helpless on the side of a yard that night?
No.
If you had seen somebody, certainly you would have helped.
Correct.
When you said that, when the private investigator asked you where you were when you said you saw the Ford Edge, are you saying that you didn't tell the private investigator that you were on Cedar?
I don't remember telling him I was on Cedar Crest. I do remember telling him that I had turned onto Fairview and saw the vehicle.
Cedar Crest in a storm at night is quite a distance from the flagpole at Fairview, isn't it?
No.
About 300 feet?
Roughly.
Difficult to see under those conditions?
No.
Could we have Exhibit 71, Stream 0, at about 6:17 a.m., please? Could you stop it there? See that street light?
I do.
Okay. At the end of that road, past the street light, is Cedar Crest, correct?
Correct.
Is that a fair depiction of the elements that night around that time?
Yes.
And in this case, there's further illumination with the car that's facing us?
Correct.
That wasn't there, was it?
Correct.
You said after you saw law enforcement, did you come down Fairview after you saw law enforcement?
I was on Fairview already when I saw the law enforcement.
Did you drive by Cedar Crest again to go back and forth and watch what was going on, or did you go on your route?
I went on my route, which included Cedar Crest.
Did you keep driving by because you wanted to watch, or did you just leave and do your regular route?
I went and did my regular route.
Could I have 6:19:27, please? And could you play it? If you could back up a little before 6:19:27. Is that weather consistent with what it looked like to you?
Yes.
Is that you there?
I don't know if that's me. Yes, that's me. That is me.
Could we go to 6:32:45, please? Is that you again?
That one, I can't tell if that was me again.
Could we go to 6:35:14, please? Was that you?
I don't see it. I don't see the truck. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Could we go back to 6:35:12?
That looks like to be a pickup truck. That does not look like my truck.
6:37:45, please. And that's you again, right?
Again, I can't tell you for sure if that was me.
Those were not your red and orange lights consistent with the earlier ones that went by?
What I saw the first time was the reflecting tape off the body of my truck.
Could we go to
I have
7?
a plow guy that is a contractor that we work tandem together.
And was he out there that night as well, going by Fairview?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever tell the private investigator about him?
Yes, I did.
7:22, please. Is that you, sir?
I can't say for sure.
7:15:45, please. Do you recognize that plow?
I do not.
7:19:55, please. Was that you, sir?
That was me.
How long does your route take?
It's hard to say. I mean, as long as it's snowing, it can take as long as it takes.
Well, if you're going to do a pass, how long does an entire pass take?
If I were to do from Cedar Crest to the end, it would take probably 10 minutes. If I were to do the entire route, I'm not cleaning up, I'm just giving it a pass so people can get through. Could take about 3 hours, could take 4 hours.
When you mentioned Brian Albert on your direct examination, had you talked to the defense about Brian Albert in your preparation for testimony?
No,
You knew some of the Albert family,
I know the entire Albert family.
and you know Brian Albert as a police officer?
Yes, I do.
Why is it that 3 times in your direct testimony you characterized him as a first responder?
Because he's a police officer, they're first responders.
Did anybody ever suggest to you to use the terms or the phrases first responder when you were describing Brian Albert?
No one did. Those are my words.
Since your trial testimony last year, have you received any more focusing or targeting of harassment?
Let's get to.
Since last year when you testified, have you received any recent aggression towards you for testifying?
No,
Have you had any further focus or problems?
no.
Let's strike that.
I have no further questions.
You were asked by Mr. Brennan about whether you saw a dumpster that night. Do you recall that line of questioning?
I do.
In the aftermath of January 29th of 2022, was a dumpster all over the news for the next 3.5 years?
Not that I'm aware of.
You were asked about going through your route with the defense investigator and giving a statement to the defense investigator.
Yes.
How soon after January 29th of 2022 was that?
2 weeks.
Were the events fresh in your mind at that time?
Yes.
Finally, actually not finally, I've got 2 more points, but they're both brief. You had mentioned that night you actually misjudged and hit a net.
Yes.
Can you describe the basketball apparatus that, and I'm going to ask you what part of it you hit, but describe what that looks like.
It's got a base with wheels on it. It's portable, so you can move it in and out. And it's got the basketball frame, and it's got the backboard and then rim.
Okay. So this is not a pole that was cemented into the ground.
Correct.
But perhaps we're all familiar with it, the black base that maybe you put sandbags on,
Correct.
that type of thing to keep it in place, but it does have wheels?
Correct.
All right, and you mentioned the net. The net is the rope netting that comes down, correct?
Correct.
There's also a hoop that keeps the net in place?
Yes.
And the pole?
Correct.
And the base?
Correct.
Of all those things, what part did your Franken truck actually catch?
It caught the net in the little bit part of the frame, of the frame where the net was.
Something that you saw from the beginning, you just misjudged the distance.
Correct.
Now, finally, with regard to the 5:30 testimony that you gave last year,
Yes.
did you also testify that the last pass that you tried to make when the police were blocking the scene was about 3 hours after that 3:30 second up and down?
Yes.
So why is it last year that you testified that it was 3 hours later, but you came up with the time of 5:30 as the final time?
As he's asking me these questions, I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm sorry, math is not my strong suit.
What time was it when you made that final pass, sir?
6:15, 6:30.
I have nothing further.
You mentioned you're trying to do the math in your head. There is no reason why you would specifically remember certain times on each pass other than trying to remember and give an accounting, right?
Could you rephrase that, please?
Sure. You don't have your watch out on a certain schedule that you have to pass a certain street at a certain time.
Correct.
You weren't marking your times to some event when you were driving up and down the street that night, were you?
No.
So you're trying to go back with your memory and piece it together the best you can.
Correct.
And that's why you're giving estimates, yes?
Correct.
And when you spoke to those law enforcement officials, not Canton, not state police, and you said at 3 o'clock you saw first responder vehicles, that was based on your memory, wasn't it? Yeah. Based on your memory.
Not at 3:30.
Right. Do you know that there was a car similar to a Ford Edge in front of 34 Fairview around 6 a.m. that morning?
I wasn't able to get in front of Fairview Drive, 34 Fairview, at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Have you ever met Kerry Roberts before?
I have not.
Counsel just asked you if there was a lot of media about this case, and you said that there was. Did he just ask you a question about whether there was a lot of attention on this case? Did he just talk to you about everything that happened after this case, all the attention on this case? Remember his question about all the attention after this case?
He asked specifically a question about the dumpsters.
And he said that wasn't subject to a lot of attention, was it?
Correct.
Right. But this case was.
The case itself, yes.
The people involved in this case were subject to a lot of attention.
Correct.
And you spoke to the defense investigator after this case as far as attention is concerned. Do you remember speaking to the investigator on June 5th, 2023?
Yes.
And do you know, coincidentally, that is the day that the blogger put out the articles on you, accusing you of not doing the right thing?
Objection.
System.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you a document. Let's take a look at that document. What day is that document dated?
June 5th, 2023.
Without reading it, that document talks about you.
Correct.
And your friends and people in the community talked to you about this article, didn't they?
Not specifically this article, but they were sending me stuff that were being printed about me, yes.
Why don't you take a little look at what's said and you can tell us whether that's the same type of information that was being conveyed to you?
Can you ask that question again, please?
Answer. Was this some of the kind of attention that you were receiving on June 5th after you spoke to the defense investigator?
Yes.
Like come sidebar?
Okay.
Sidebar.
Sorry, I have just a few more questions. When I had mentioned about meeting the defense investigator on June 5th, 2023, I misspoke. It was June 5th, 2024. Does that sound more like it?
Yes.
June 5th, 2024, was that shortly before you testified before?
Yes.
You were asked on redirect examination whether any dumpsters got any attention about this case. The question I was asking is, did you notice things that might have been open and obvious? And you have no memory of an actual dumpster in the area, correct?
Correct.
If I could have on the screen Exhibit 37, still photo from that clip. I have a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
It's a video that I'll stop at a certain point.
Okay.
And sir, do you notice the big red dumpster to the right side across from Fairview?
Yes.
You can take that down. Sir, when we started the break, I'd asked you some questions. I showed you a document, asked you if you were aware what was inside that document, and you mentioned that was around June 5th, 2023. That was before your last testimony in this case?
Yes.
And you knew that a person or persons were putting out private pictures of you online?
I did notice.
And those private pictures, you didn't give anybody permission or want that attention, did you?
I did not.
In fact, it wasn't just some private pictures. It was pictures taken from a number of different times in your life, correct?
Yes.
You never gave anybody permission to do that?
I did not.
You didn't want people talking about you or asking you questions that was none of their business, did you?
I did not.
And it was embarrassing that you were being made this public spectacle when you had done nothing wrong, correct?
Ask it differently.
Was it embarrassing what they were doing to you?
I wouldn't say embarrassing as more as aggravating.
In fact, they were calling your boss, yes?
I'm going to allow that.
Yes.
And you mentioned how hard you work.
Yes.
Plow, you even used to deliver peaches for 8 years.
Yes.
Zamboni, anytime you can work, you try hard, don't you?
I do.
And when someone's calling your boss, giving undue attention to you, didn't it create some concern that could affect your livelihood?
I did not think it was going to affect me in that manner.
In addition to dragging you into this, because of you, your brother was dragged into this, wasn't he?
Ask it differently.
When you were getting this information about what was happening, you learned that they were also dragging your brother into this because of you, correct?
I'll sustain that.
Did you learn that information was coming out about your brother?
I knew my brother was dealing with other issues regarding this case.
And certainly, you're close with your brother.
Yes.
Care for your brother.
Yes.
You did not want to upset anybody and have more attention brought onto your brother, did you?
I did not.
And there was an attempt to link your brother to one of the Alberts, in fact, correct?
Yes.
As well as you.
I don't know if I was being linked.
Did you know the information of trying to so-called out you about the fact that you work for Chris Albert?
I'm going to sustain that the way it's phrased.
Were you aware when your friends and family were telling you about what was going on, about an attempt to draw a relationship between you and the Alberts?
No.
And were you aware when people were telling you what was happening, that there was attacks on you personally, like finances and things like that?
Yes, I was aware of that.
And certainly that is pretty discouraging when that is happening and you've done nothing wrong, isn't it?
It was, again, aggravating.
And this was all happening before you came in and testified last time at the trial.
Correct.
After you testified, things got better.
I wouldn't say better. It's gotten a little more easily manageable.
You were no longer being harassed, you were being embraced.
Correct.
Yes.
Showing you a photograph, do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that part of the bracing process after you testified a certain way at the last trial?
It was after I testified, yes.
With redactions, I'm going to introduce a select portion of this.
So I need to see what that is. Come to sidebar and make this very brief, please.
Been attacked? And I just showed you a photograph. Was that a fair and accurate depiction of you after your last testimony?
Yes.
Reflecting you now being embraced rather than attacked?
Yes.
Could we show the photo, please, Ms. Gilman, with the court's permission?
Yes.
And that's you, Mr. Loughran?
Yes.
You can take that down, please. Thank you for your time.
Just very briefly, sir, if I might, Your Honor.
Sure.
Mr. Loughran, I should say, the questioning about the attention that you received in 2023 when you received secondhand the information from the blogger, was that before or long after you were interviewed and gave a statement to the defense investigator in February of 2022?
It was long after.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Loughran, you are all set, sir.